Hi, folks. You are watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. I'm Mike Morales here in sunny Southern California. That gentleman out there is
Eric Zandona in the Florida Emerald Coast.
Ooh, how romantic. Eric and I have the distinct pleasure of breaking down, dissecting, and tasting this new expression from Mijenta. This is limited run, apparently, right, Eric? So many bottles available.
Yeah, just a little over 2,000 bottles for the whole run right now.
Well, more like 1,900 minus,
right.
-2. Yeah, we were on that short list. Thank you to the folks at Altos Planos, who is the owner of the company that actually owns this brand. We have been dissecting this thing for like the last 40 minutes off camera, all right? Because there's a whole lot of things that are really interesting that we're going to go through. This is an 80 proof. They're calling it a Gran Reserva Anejo, so it's not an extra Anejo, but there's a lot of labor-intensive barreling going on.
Yeah.
As is Ana Maria's custom. Ana Maria Romero Mena is the brains and the mad scientist behind the flavor profile of Mijenta. And she's done some wonderful work with Corrido and Mijenta and Inspiro is another one that she just keeps knocking out these hits. The hits just keep on coming for her. So I'm glad for her. She's really gotten some really unusual profiles that are just specific to those brands, which has been great. But we just popped the seal on this one. We're gonna pour it, taste it. Oh, nice. It's got the same kind of wine bottle cap that the other ones do. It's a black matte, folks. So
and with that silver, there's this like silver foil on the bottle, makes it really pop and stand out. I would definitely say nominee for packaging.
Oh, for sure. Well, we love their other packaging as well, but this is being a different expression. They wanted it to look similar, but quite different. So we're pouring ours in a Glencairn because I think that's what Eric is using. Eric, for as much barreling as it has, it's really light in color, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. So they say, I believe it's on their website, that the tequila is aged for 18 months. And they don't say, and it spends in that time in 4 different barrels. So I don't know what the breakdown is. My guess is most of that is in the American white oak, and then probably a little bit of time in the other barrels. But so 18 months for the Anejo, and
so it qualifies as an Anejo. I think it's called finishing and polishing. It's finished in 3 more different barrels, I guess.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing around how the process is described. They don't call it finishing, so who knows how long it's spending in the others. But what they say is that, so the Blanco from Mijenta, which we enjoyed, or goes into American white oak, which is standard, and then from there it goes into some French oak barrels, and then the really interesting and unusual thing is it goes from there to acacia wood and then to cherry wood. And so Mike and I were spending some time trying to dissect the Norma, because the definitions for aged tequilas requires oak contact, which it has, then doesn't say anything about non-oak. So we were just, trying to dissect, what that actually means. My guess is that they probably meet the aging requirements for Anejo in the oak barrels before it goes into the other ones, but that's a guess. So, but it's got a nice color.
Yeah.
Nice aroma.
Yeah, it's got some beautiful legs and tears too. Wow. And not super clingy. They're not thick. They're healthy, but it's not, like I say, for as much time as it spends in a barrel, it's got some, decent legs and tears. It's not it's not thick and rich,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I mean, it's just gonna. This is just a
And this,
harbinger of what the mouthfeel will be like.
yeah, and you mentioned that it came from an interesting distillery as well.
This is not being bottled. Okay, remember the norm doesn't necessarily denote where it's distilled, only where it's bottled. Okay, folks, because that's kind of the confusion. People think, oh, it's NOM 1414, so it's unless you know the distillery, and you know that they produce and bottle only their products. But there are other distilleries that it's kind of like a chef's kitchen. They allow different master distillers to use their facilities because they are more. The facilities are more. What's the word I'm looking for? They have more of the equipment that they need, so they're very versatile for the different styles of distillers. Because every distiller. So anyway, Mijenta, the core line, the core 2 lines come out of one distillery. This one is being bottled at a smaller distillery. And in fact, it wasn't until I was reading the list, there's like 5 tequilas that come out of 1412. 1412 is owned by the Bañuelos family, which is the people that made Cazadores before they sold it to Bacardi. This is their distillery where they make Don Felix, Hacienda Vieja, which is a solid tequila. For those of you who here in Southern California, Hacienda Vieja, you can find it at every bodega in Mexican, like Vallarta, the Mexican chain of supermarkets.
Yeah.
And it's a value tequila. It tastes like the old Cazadores, and it's owned by those guys. And that's where this Mijenta is coming from.
Yeah.
So, wow, I'm shocked. I've not seen that, because the other tequilas on the NOM on that list are theirs. Only their distillery. So Ana Maria must have either pulled some strings or said, hi, can I borrow your kitchen, or your bottling plant or your barrels? I don't know.
Yeah.
So what do we got on the nose here so far?
I think there's a good amount of vanilla kind of coming in. There's the agave is definitely there. There's some pepper. There's a little bit of greenness, but it's got I think there's a distinct vanilla note that's coming through. And but then there's some other stuff. It's a little bit of like something a little earthy that's not quite the tequila. It's something else, something other than the agave, creating some earthiness. Real intriguing aroma.
Yeah, there's barely any alcohol coming through either.
No.
Just a slight now. It's finally starting to open up a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think we need to let it open a little bit more? Because we just broke the seal on these, but we just received them within this week. They haven't been sitting on our living room floor for like, weeks and months.
Yeah. Let's take a sip. I think the thing I'm getting is there is a little bit of like a little bit of woodiness that reminds me of like a workshop.
It's like sawdust.
Yeah, a little bit, but in a good way. It's
yeah.
It's pleasant, not like raw construction wood, but it's a really pleasant woodiness that it's not like overpowering.
No, and the funny thing is, I don't. Maybe I'm confused because we had, like I said, off camera, we spent like 40 minutes trying to dissect where these woods were coming from.
Yeah,
I expected more complexity on the nose, and I'm not getting it. It's kind of one-sided for me.
Yeah, I can see that. But like I said, I think the agave is definitely there. A lot of vanilla from the wood, not not an additive in any way, but some pepper, a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of like maybe some sort of citrus peel, but
Well, I say we dive in and see what we get. Because here we go.
mm,
Mm. 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 Oh, wow, that's a hot finish.
it's a little warm, but it's really, to me, it's pretty silky on the tongue.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, again, we were looking at the legs and tears. I mean, that's generally how it's gonna. That's where what you're expecting what it's gonna feel like on your palate in your mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's silky.
Yeah, I think it's got a the agave character is definitely there. So whatever they're doing with these 4 casts is not overpowering it, which is nice from generally what I like to see. And I think this is I think the interesting thing that we've said a little bit with the nose and now with the palate. It's really nice, got a very silky, smooth texture, good quality agave character. But then with all that wood, you would expect more complexity. And it's a little bit like not there. So maybe there's a lot going on with the texture part from the woods, but not as much flavor. Again, we don't know like if these barrels are toasted, if they're charred, if they're not charred. They don't really say. So it's hard to know exactly what's happening in those other barrels.
Well, the finish is I'm familiar with the kind of pepperiness or like the hot cinnamon that you get on an aged tequila, but I've never had it go all the way, the pepperiness, the hot cinnamon warmth. I've never felt it go down so deep as it does with this one.
Yeah.
Usually once you swallow it, the pepperiness kind of dissipates, it just mellows itself out, but it just keeps giving. It's like and all the way down. It's like, wow, there's a warmth in this thing. It sort of reminds me a little bit of Tears of Llorona, the way it goes down. But they're using they're using Scotch barrels. He uses like 2 or 3 different barrels. And he always, Germán González always said his secret was he uses Scotch barrels.
Yeah.
But this was not using any of that. So.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit like conflicted about it. So part of the reason is retail is around $200. And I can definitely see a market where somebody would buy this, totally enjoy the flavor of the tequila, totally enjoy the silky smoothness of it, and be totally happy. And then I could also see there might be somebody who would buy this and understand, read the details about the 4 different woods, and then be a little bit disappointed about the lack of complexity. So I can see like 2 different groups that could be either really happy or not that excited about it. And I think personally, I'm a little bit in the like not super excited about it because with all that work and time.
Yeah, this is really a labor-intensive product.
Like if this was they just gave it to us and said this was an 18-month añejo, I'd be like, the texture, the smoothness, the flavor, really exciting, really nice, really high quality. But then you add on all that other stuff and you're like, well, where is it? So
yeah, I mean, again, if we didn't have all this information, like I said, 40 minutes ago, we were trying to dissect the wood stuff. And I mean, maybe I should have recorded some of that because it really got nerdy and geeky, right? But then we started the review, and it's like, well, I was expecting more on the nose. I was expecting, because it says cherry, and what I want to know is what the other woods are imparting to this that I'm missing, that you and I are getting.
Yeah.
And if you can't get it, Mr. ADI, American Distilling Institute, if he can't pull it out, because you can see his full library behind him. That's not that's not a Zoom wall, folks. That's his, that's his, from micro distillers throughout the country and agave spirits.
Yeah.
I will say it goes in sweeter than I anticipated. This is a very sweet on the palate, which is going to, all the oak heads are going to love this, because the American palate is geared toward this. And they're doing it again, and they're not doing it using additives. That is not the case here. So the sweetness is naturally, and maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe the other barrels are imparting the sweetness that otherwise you wouldn't get in an 18-month añejo in a whiskey barrel or a bourbon barrel. Right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, with French oak, you generally would expect like more spice, and maybe that's where that like lingering like finish spiciness is coming from. But usually French oak tannins are really powerful, so they tend to really like coat all the way across the and I don't get that as much because it's so smooth. And I don't know, maybe if this was at 43 or 45, you would get more of that. I don't know, maybe bringing it down to 40 really just like mellowed everything out. Still really nice.
Oh yeah.
Still like excellent made añejo. It's just with all, and that's the thing, with all that extra work, I'm just like, well, where is it?
Yeah, because again, you got to justify the cost, right?
Right.
$200, and of course, after the pandemic or during the pandemic, there was an añejo shortage, because this is the classification that is driving the market. All right, the ultra premium. And I like that they're emulating the flavor profiles of popular sweet tequilas like Clase Azul, Mandala, anything coming out of the Partida family, name one, because they're all leaning toward the sweet side, Cava de Oro and some of those. But this is all done naturally, and the French oak is an afterthought, because those other tequilas that I kind of mentioned, French oak is like the first, the first oak that they use, the first barrel that they use. They'll throw it all in French oak, and you get all these, the cocoa, and you get the vanilla, and you get all kinds of chocolate and all that. But this one's a very mellow. I'll have to say, it's a mellow añejo. Yeah.
So that's why I say, like, I think there's totally a market. Like there's a tequila drinker out there that's going to pick up this, be really happy with it.
Oh yeah.
So, if you like stuff that's a little bit on the sweeter side, you like smoothness, there's still some heat, but but you really like that silky texture. And you want an añejo where the agave is being expressed fully, more so than the barrel, you're going to be totally happy with this.
Yeah, and right now the big what's the big issue these days is additive free, right?
Right.
This is not verified additive free, but knowing what I know about this master distiller, this mistress distiller, if that's even a term, she refuses to use any of that, because her other flavor profiles that she's making for other people are verified additive free. So if you want a sweet tequila, because your palate leans toward that, and you like, again, you like brands like Clase Azul, you like Asombroso, for instance, which is another one that's made quite well, but it's really on the sweet side. You're not gonna turn this down.
No, you're not.
And it really does have a lingering peppery / hot cinnamon finish. Yeah, I just wish that there was more. I'm kind of bummed now.
And that's what I said. Like for me, it's a little bit lacking, but like I said, I think there's gonna be people out there that really enjoy this at the same time. So that's why I'm a little conflicted.
So can we call it a brand of promise nominee? Would you go that far? Not because again, not knowing if we didn't get like a press release, so we had to do a lot of the backtracking and fact finding ourselves on the websites, and so not knowing anything. What do you think?
And that's the thing. Like I think it's a really well made tequila. It's just like for the amount of effort they seem to put in, it falls a little bit short. So that's where I'm like, yes, I would say brand of promise nominee in terms of really high quality, well made, but does it miss its potential? Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Okay. And I will go with that. I agree with you because, Eric's palate's like wide open, but even us off camera, when we were doing all this, it's like, I'm really kind of jazzed. I was really, hoping to see more, to sense more complexity, at least on the nose. I can see the profile being what it is, but with all that work, it's a quadruple barrel añejo. That's what it's down to.
Yeah.
And it's not giving, I'm on my same pour, basically. Yeah. So, and generally what happens with these really well-made tequilas is that the more you go down, you go through the same sample, it opens up more and it gives you more, and it's just pretty consistent. It
is. It is. There's a little bit more caramel, I think, in the aroma than when we first poured it, but it's kind of the same. So yeah. So that's why I think it's good, but I think it's well made. Will it be out others? I don't know.
We'll find out when we do the math and do the ratings. Right. But yeah, technically, I guess we'd have to, being that it's quadruple barreled, it might even be in its own separate category. I'll have to check with the referee because. But see, the thing is, Eric, when we do that, when we separate them as double barreled and triple barreled, whether it's a reposado or an añejo, generally speaking, the barrels that they're putting them in imparts those separate flavors. So right. It would not be fair to have these añejos or reposados compete with other ones that only use one barrel. Right. So we have to give them a separate category. But in this case, we could probably throw it in there with the other añejos and it would score quite highly.
Yeah.
But like you said, would it beat anybody else out?
Right. Yeah, I think to me this really just falls into añejo. The other stuff, interesting, and but at this point, I think just
we're going to call it a brand of promise. Will it hold up against others? We won't know until we do the scores, and Lisa, our managing partner, Lisa Peach, tabulates those, and we'll find out before the end of the year. So we'll keep you folks posted. But so that's our take on Mijenta. If you bought a bottle of this, if you've invested $200 on this one, tell us what you think. Leave us a comment down below. What did you find that we're missing? Okay, because we spent 40 minutes off camera and probably another 40 minutes on camera dissecting this expression. What are we missing? What are you guys getting that we're not? Leave us a comment down below if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you for downloading it anywhere where you get iTunes or Spotify. Thank you much. And, subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a like, because that does help us with the algorithm. Follow us on all our social media. You can follow Eric on his social media, which is what, Easy Drinking?
Easy drinking.
Yeah, it's easy drinking. As you can tell, he's been easily drinking by his library behind him. I think the last time you and I did a review, you didn't have that side shelf.
No, these ones are new.
Yeah.
These I had. These are new.
Yeah, so he's running out of wall space, folks. But anyway, that's our take. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And whatever you folks do. So, hey, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.